Hello and welcome to Fresh Perspectives. My name is Gail, and I'm happy to say that I have a really special person on my program today, and the reason she is so special is because she is one of the instructors for the AARP driver safety course. Her name is Shirley Erbsmehl. Thank you for coming on today, Shirley.
It's great to be here, Gail. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're welcome. Now, you and I have something in common, and that is my last name and the first three letters of your last name are the same. Why don't you tell us what your last name means?
Okay. It's a German name, and yours is also, and actually you're the first person that I've ever met with partial my name. Mm-hmm. And I did look it up, and I found out that the first part, herb, means peas, P-E-A-S, the vegetable, just like your little necklace shows.
Right, that's why I wore it today.
Wonderful. And the second syllable means flower, so it's pea flower.
Pea flower.
Pea flower. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I know of no other Erbsmehls in the United States. I have looked online to see them, but there are relatives in Berlin, Germany, and have spoken with them there.
Oh, okay.
So,
now this is your husband's family?
Yes, it is. And actually, I am of German lineage also.
Oh, okay.
So it's strange because, you know, the peas and the flour, and I was a miller, M-I-L-L-E-R.
Oh, okay.
So, yes, so
yeah.
we're both German families.
Well, that just makes me a pea then, I guess.
You got it.
Without the flour. Okay, I guess we'll get down to the brass tacks of talking about why I invited you to come on. Now, you're a retired school teacher. Does that have anything to do with how and why you decided to become a teacher for the AARP driver safety course?
That's right. Well, it could be. I had taken the course several times prior to taking this on myself, and frankly, I found it rather boring. Because the instructor would have everybody like read a chapter, read a paragraph, the next person read it, and it was boring.
So you basically read your way through it.
Right. And I thought that's not a good teaching technique at all, because not everyone reads the same, not the same ability to read orally. So finally I said one day to my husband, I'm going to volunteer to take this course and teach it myself. So I inquired, and it was very simple procedure because I had teaching skills. It was not a chore at all. And I went through a little bit of training, like one afternoon, and then so they found I was acceptable to be a teacher and an instructor, actually, because you're not teaching, you're just reviewing skills that people should know about.
Okay.
And that's how I became. And actually, I was just awarded this past winter, 10 years. I've been doing this now.
So 10 years
10
you've
years.
been teaching it.
Yes.
Wow.
So hundreds of people, many repeats. And that's why I enjoy people. So obviously, it fell right into my lap.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Now, you usually take about 20 people in a class?
It depends on where I hold the class, and it's up to me to find the location. Sometimes it's difficult, so some places I do it in churches, and probably the room's maximum size can hold 20, because I have to have so much airspace for each person in the room, can't overcrowd it. In some places, I can hold 30 or 40 in a class. So again, and I have had 40. People are always so polite and courteous. I haven't had anybody be unruly, but as a professional teacher, I would know how to handle them very diplomatically and not be embarrassing to them. So everyone, I try to treat as I would like to be treated.
Okay, what did you actually teach when you taught school?
I was an elementary school teacher.
An elementary
Yes, I'll give my kudos to SUNY Fredonia for my education. And I taught for a little over 32 years in the same school district, a number of variety of schools that I taught at, and I've done everything from K through 6. 25 years in 5th grade. And then I ended my career because I just wanted a little shot of upbeat change. And last 2 years I taught third grade.
Oh, third grade.
Wonderful.
Okay. Well, you've had an enjoyable life then,
I
haven't
have.
you? Yeah. Okay. How can people benefit from taking the AARP driver safety course?
Well, one thing, it does review things that you maybe learned prior to getting your driver's license, but got into some bad habits. And so now this will help you review things that you should be doing to be a better and safer driver. Studies have been done also, Gail, to show that people that take the class are better drivers and safer drivers because of it. So there must be merit to it. Now, AARP is not the only driver safety class around. I would be remiss if I said it was. However, it is by far the cheapest class that offered.
Oh, is it really?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
it's
okay.
the cheapest game in town, I tell people when they sign up. It just depends what works for you, which fits into your schedule to take the class. I say I can, wherever anybody can set me up. Sometimes it's a library. I've been at Casadega Library, and they have a limit of 20 seats because it's a small room.
Yeah, that's where Carl and I took it back in April. That's how I met you.
That's
we
right.
Took the
That's
course. Yeah, you do get to thinking about all of these things when you're driving. When you take the course, they tend to be in your head.
And then, in addition, there are some new things that come up that people have maybe just skimmed or saw something in the paper, but we are promptly given information and could I just mention to you what information I have about everyone's going to have a different license or by October 2020. And there are 3 different kind of licenses you can get. And the first one would be the real is the simplest. Well, let me start with the top one. The first one is the enhanced. That would be by far the greatest. So if you do if you want to be able to board a domestic flight within the U.S. or to enter a federal building or a military base, cross a U.S. border, I'm coming from Canada, Mexico, and some Caribbean countries, and for photo ID purposes, that would be an enhanced, and that will cost $30 more. Okay. Then the next one that you could get is a real ID, and that's the one I most recently did because it's between the two. I have a passport, so I don't need it as a passport, but a real ID can be used to still board a domestic flight in the U.S., to enter the federal building or a military base, and for photo ID. So I can still use my passport for other things. And then the one which would simply be the standard one, like most people or many people still have, would be it could be used to board a domestic flight only until October 1st of 2020. So after that, they're either going to have to have a passport or either the real ID or the enhanced. You can still use it for photo ID. So if someone does not have a passport, I would suggest, they're suggesting people go for the real or the enhanced.
Oh, sure.
Okay, so.
Okay, otherwise you can't do any of those things.
Exactly.
Okay, now how can people find out when classes are going to be held?
Well, many times insurance companies will mail their people that they're insuring their automobile, will mail them a card to tell them, it's time for them to get their have the class renewed.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'll be in the paper if I get submitted, and I do, but sometimes probably because they don't have enough space, whatever, it doesn't get put in. Word of mouth is a very good way to get it put in. The library, like you did, they had a sign in their door advertising where it was going to be. Churches will oftentimes put it in their weekly bulletins. If I have it at, like the Masonic Lodge in Fredonia, I will post a sign there telling where the class is and when. So, but the word of mouth is really special. I think I told you before that just this morning, a lady who had signed up for my class coming up next week said that her son would like to take it, and he's younger. And here I might also add, Gail, that you don't have to be a senior citizen to take the class. You can, anyone 18 and older who has a valid New York State license can take the class, and the perk is that you'll get up to 10% off on your liability and collision. Now that's a state law, and so your insurance company must give you
a discount.
You got it. And that will show up on your policy when you see it. It'll show driver safety discount and the amount next to it. So,
well, I think I heard that you can find out about it on the AARP website.
Exactly. Oh, forgot about that. So thank you for doing it. Yes, thank you. You can. Many people will call for that. They've seen it on the website. And my name and number. But they'll show you other names and numbers also, but they'll try to zero in on the people for the locale where you live.
Oh, right, right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I forgot about that one. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Now, we kind of need to get around to some of the things. Of course, we could never cover all 6 hours of this in a 1-hour television program. So I picked out some of the things that you teach in the class. And one of the things that you talked about was safety around school buses and obeying the speed limit by schools. Now, I was shocked when you told us in class that in New York State alone, 50,000 people actually pass a school bus while its flashing lights are on.
On any one given school day.
Every day.
Any day the school is a session. That's an amazing number. And I have valid proof. It's been written up in the newspapers, but I've been telling people this forever and ever and ever. And that means sometimes people pass on the right side of the bus as well as on the left side. Which,
and you don't know where the kids are going to be going.
No. And I've seen it myself twice within 3 minutes of 2 buses. Also, the only time the driver can be ticketed for this offense is if a policeman sees it happen.
Right.
And this is why I really hope they'll pass legislation that allows, that school districts can afford to have cameras on the bus.
Right. Just since we took the class in April, I've been hearing on the radio stories about the cameras they want to put on the buses for that reason. And they're planning on paying for the cameras with the money that they get from the fines.
Well, that would be excellent for sure, because it is pricey for sure.
Oh, sure, yeah. So at any time when you're passing a school bus that's to let kids either board or get off, at any time, if you're passing a school bus when its flashing lights are on, you could be hitting a child.
Yes.
Or even maybe more than one children.
You're right. And I think I told you, and this always surprises people also when I tell them that if you're on a divided highway and you see a school bus on the other side of the divided highway, so we're talking the thruway, a divided highway, and the lights are flashing on the school bus, even if you're going in the other direction, you must stop, because that means children are getting off the bus and they're unreliable is what they're going to do. Who knows what's happened, because why the driver had to put on the lights, but that means children are getting off. Maybe there's a fire on the bus or there's an emergency, they have to get the child off. You must stop. It sounds like it's remote, but it's the law.
Oh, sure. Well, there's good reasons for them. And then obeying the speed limit past the schools. Now, I suppose technically the kids should be in school during school hours, but kids do things they shouldn't, like leaving school,
On their little break, go out for a soda at the corner store.
Yeah.
You got the fees.
Yeah, So sometimes police officers will hide in the bushes or something for a while. But yeah, sometimes kids are out and about when they shouldn't be. Now, Are you to obey? It says, I know the sign by the local school says fines double during school hours, and it lists from a certain time in the morning till late afternoon. But are you supposed to slow down like that outside of school hours also? I mean,
The time is, I think, from 6 in the morning and probably till 6 at night.
yeah, something like that.
That would be the times that you should be really, put your crews on when you're going through the school zone. And they're not all going to be the same either. Some districts, even within the same school district, depending on the road, if it's a major highway, it may be 30. On the side road, maybe it's 20. So you just have to pay attention to what it is and set your crews so that you don't go over it, and be alert for those children who may be out
Right.
and about.
Yeah, the one in Mayville, I'm thinking is 26 miles an hour past the school. So, but anyway, it's just for the safety of the children.
That's right.
So, okay, now here is something that almost there is a law that almost everybody breaks, and that is when you have a car stopped and signaling to make a left turn, you get whole long lines of people passing that person on the right. I don't know, this is one good thing about taking this driver safety course, is people can be reminded that that's not legal to do that. And one thing that a lot of people do, like I've been saying stuff about this to them since I've taken this course a couple of times, when I'm in a car with somebody and they pass somebody on the right, I'll say, you just broke the law, you know. Yeah. And then, but even if you're just having a conversation about it with somebody, what everybody says is, well, everybody does it.
No,
And then they say that this seems to really bother people a lot. They'll always say, and if you don't do it, other people are going to be honking at you. I'm not sure where this fear of being honked at because you're not passing somebody on the right came from, but people seem to be terrified of having other drivers get mad at them because they're not passing the other car on the right for some reason.
well, and just having spoken with a police officer at a class I attended last week, he's talked about sometimes he'll ticket someone if they're honking their horn for,
Honking their horn to try to get somebody else to do something illegal?
Yes, because it's only meant to be for an emergency situation, and that certainly would not be an emergency. And I think what you are talking about too is when people are crossing the fog line, when they're driving on a road and they're with the fog line
on their right,
the fog line on the right, and they call it that because there's something they put into that white paint so that it just
shows up during.
So it's a white line on the right side and a yellow on the left side of like a two-lane road. And the white line, the fog line, you only cross over it if you're turning into a driveway. So all of those people who are crossing over that fog line to go around you because you want to make a left turn, you're right, they could be ticketed for that because that's illegal. And
and what would be the penalty of getting being caught doing that?
For the ticket cost, I'm not sure what the ticket cost would be. We could look it up or something.
Do you get any points against
Oh
your
yes,
license?
if you are ticketed, you are going to get points. And I always show people, I have one here.
What the points
Yes.
are? Yes.
Everyone gets one of these in the class. It tells about the point insurance reduction program. What various points would be. Just, let's see. Like failure to stop for the school bus is 5.
5 points.
5 points for that one.
How many points does it take for you to lose your license?
That would depend on the severity of what was happening. I mean, if you had struck and killed someone, you'd probably
Lose it right then.
there. Yes, and if you have like more than one violation of the same thing, perhaps in anywhere between, and I checked this with the Department of 36 and 39 months, you know, they're going to be checking it. Points never really go away, and I stress this also. Yes, they're called shadowed. So you can take this course or any driver safety course to reduce your points for insurance purposes only.
Oh.
Otherwise, they're on your record, and they're not going to go away unless, you know, a number of months goes by and you haven't had any more speeding tickets. They may, and I've checked again, they, after 36 to 39 months, they can eradicate them. But you have to have been a good driver and, you know, not bent the law for any reason in between. So, but this is such a good, you know, bit of information about point insurance reduction. And so they're called shadowed. So if you've ever been pulled over, not Gail, but someone has been pulled over and they're sitting there waiting, getting more and more nervous why the policeman has not come to their car to speak to them about it, why he pulled them over, he's looking up on his computer to see if you have had other offenses.
Oh, really?
And then like what they were, and that would determine perhaps the severity of the ticket.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you really, 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 people want to be a really good driver.
Yes, and treat people the way you want to be treated. Don't just assume, you know, that you don't assume anything. You just, you know, you're being a good driver is helping the other person also.
Oh, right. And we want to be good role models, certainly.
Exactly.
Okay. Now we're going to talk about why, how to react when a deer or other animal jumps out in the road in front of you.
Right. So if you an animal of any kind, but particularly the deer, which can cause such a lot of damage, you are to hit it. Hit the deer. Because if you veer off the road, you're more apt to hit a pole or a tree, and that'll do far greater damage to your car and you. Yes, you are going to have damaged car, but
it's better than getting killed.
Yes, you will. I've had people in my class that have told me I think it was the class you took, Gail, that gentleman said that he'd hit 4 deer in 6 months.
Yeah,
remember that? And then the woman in back, she said, she said, I can do better than that. It got to be funny after all, because she said, well, I've hit 6 deer in 6 months. So like it was, can you top this? And then he says, yes, but one of the deer that I hit was with a loaner car. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was sitting in front of me,
He was in the first row.
Yeah.
Telling this story.
Yeah.
So it was, yes, but they were both alive. Damage to their cars, yes, but not to themselves. And they were buckled in. Yes, be buckled in always.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and you said that now they're going to make it a law to buckle up in the back seat.
I hope so, because there are only 28 states out of our 50 that have the law for all people to be buckled up in front and back. And just think of it, Gail, someone you're buckled up in the front, however, the person in the back is not buckled up, you have an accident, they're going to come forward and they're going to strike you. They become a human projectile. And they could go through the windshield and cause even more damage to you and the driver and your passenger.
Because even if the people in the front are buckled up, they could get injured and everything.
Right. So I don't take anybody in my back seat unless I'm sure they're buckled up. In fact, I just went shopping for a car a couple of weeks ago, and I went out, and my husband was in the seat beside me. I was test driving the car, and the salesman was in the back.
And he didn't buckle up.
He did not. And he said, we can go now. And I said, you haven't buckled up yet. And he said, okay. And I heard the click, click. Okay, now I'm going. I said, that's just the way I do it. So.
Yeah, I can remember riding in a car with a mechanic when he would be driving my car to see what the noise I'd been hearing
Yes.
was, so he'd know.
Right.
But him not buckling up.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then the thing would be dinging, of course, because he wouldn't be buckled up. And I said, you know, that's making that noise because you didn't buckle your seatbelt. And he goes, oh, I never buckle it when I'm road testing.
Right.
When I'm, you know, checking somebody's car to.
Not good.
You know.
Not good.
But anyway, okay. So it's better to hit the deer than to miss it, which is what people are doing when they're swerving to miss it, is trying
Exactly.
to avoid an accident, but you're more likely to get injured or killed
Right.
if you do swerve to
Right.
miss the animal.
Or go into it, or they'll swerve and go into a ditch. The car will turn over. I mean, you know.
I remember a local person one time, and this wasn't a deer. It was during the summer months. The woman was driving up the road, and I had her little boy with her. He was like 12 maybe years old or something like that, when somebody on a bicycle pulled out in front of her, and she swerved to miss the person on the bicycle. Unfortunately, across the road in front of a truck, and her little boy was killed.
Oh, sad.
Yeah, it was
tragic.
really horrible. So, and you know, so what should she have done? Would it have been better to? What should she have done under those circumstances? Or
I have no
you don't
clue.
know?
No,
you'd have to be in the situation
yourself to see it.
But you know, these things happen so quickly.
Right.
You know, it's hard to really think about it.
That's right.
I suppose you could just try to put the brakes on.
Don't know.
You know, so. But anyway, when it's an animal like a deer or something, definitely just try to put on the brakes and hit the deer if
Yes.
you have to. Okay. Okay. Now I was going to have you describe how to correctly enter and exit a roundabout. I mean, you know, there's a lot of argument going on over there in the Fredonia area about that one. They want to put in. How do you correctly enter and exit a roundabout?
And they have started putting flags up and markings on the roads for that, so it has begun.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, when you come to where the roundabout will be, you'll find it's an inverted V like this, white with a red border around it, and that's the yield sign. So when you come to that, you can go into the roundabout if there is no other vehicle coming towards you. When it's safe to do so, that means you yield, then you proceed. And as you go to the exit, this is going to be a double lane supposedly also, you'll have time to put on your signal to show the drivers that you're approaching which exit you want to get off at, if it's at all possible. Now, the one that is in Irving is a very simple roundabout because it's just one lane going around. But again, the secret is to yield. Yielding is something you give, you don't take it. And I think people have had problems because they just said, here we go, and they just start going in, and now somebody's in their path, and they're,
Yeah,
it's
not. It doesn't sound as strict as a stop sign,
But
you know.
You will save time, and you will, because you don't have to stop at the signal. Your car isn't going to idle. And
Now, when you turn onto the roundabout, you're always making a right turn onto the roundabout?
yes, you're going counterclockwise. So you're going, so if you're at 6, you're heading up to 3, then to 12, to 9, to 6, like that. You're going around, around. But yielding is the secret to it. Just, and put your signal on when you want to move. If it's a multi-lane, start putting your signal on where you want to get off, so people will know that.
Yeah, that must be kind of difficult with a multi-lane one. You were telling us in class about an experience you had with a roundabout on a trip to Mexico when you were over there for a visit. Now that had multi-lanes?
This was in Mexico City.
Mexico
City. And yes, and this is many years ago. anyway, we knew where we wanted to get off. We had the plan, we had the map, but this multi-lane must be 6 or 7 lanes around, and we could not get over. It was Roy arrived in the city right at the end of the day. Commuter traffic was horrendous. And so we're going around, and again, this applies anywhere. If you can't get off at your exit because they're multi-lane, you just go around again and again until you can work your way over. And so we had gone around a number of times, I want to say, and frustrated, but we just kept going around, and suddenly a police car pulled up beside us, and I unrolled our windows, and he said, fortunately in English, we didn't speak Spanish. Young and foolish, I guess, is what we were driving. But he said, "Are you lost?" And we said, "No, we know we want to get off that exit over there, but we can't get there." He said, "I've seen you go around several times." He said, "Follow me and I'll take you there," which we did. We got right behind his car and he took us that exit. And then, as I said, we secret then to getting out of the city. We left early in the morning, and actually we use this technique right to this present time. We don't arrive at commuter time in the afternoon, try to make our trip that way, go into large cities, and leave early in the morning, sometimes when it's still dark. So
you learned a valuable lesson that day, didn't you?
I did.
And the police officer was so kind.
He was.
To help you.
Yes, and he spoke English.
Yes.
That was helpful too.
Yes, that worked out well for you. Okay, now distractions. Let's talk about the different kinds of things that can distract us while driving, including eating and drinking.
Distraction. Many people, first of all, think right away, cell phones. Yes, they are a distraction for sure. And we will be ticketed for that. Oftentimes, police officers who I've had in class, I've had judges in class also, and they'll say, they may pull somebody over for not having their seatbelt on, but also discover they also have that little cell phone that they just now drop beside them on their lap. And yes, distractions, they are a big distraction. And for some people it has almost become an addiction that they're using their cell phone. It's really sad that way. However, you mentioned also food and beverages.
Right.
They are. Now, supposing you're eating something and you drop crumbs, or you think something from your sandwich spilled out on your lap, and the first reaction is just to look down. That looking down for just those few seconds
can cause an
accident. So we personally in our household do not eat or drink in the car. Although we have the little cups there, we just don't do that. Simply because there was a case not too many years ago, wasn't there, a woman from a fast food, I won't mention the name of the company, fast food company, and she had a hot beverage and it spilled in her lap. And she had an accident, and she sued the company for damage to her vehicle and injuries, but it was her fault.
It was her own fault.
Yes.
Yeah, you hear that a lot. I've heard of situations where people have gotten in an accident after leaving a bar and having been drinking alcoholic beverages, and then getting in an accident and trying to sue the owner of the bar.
Right. Yeah, and that's silly too.
And it's supposed to be the person's responsibility, if people are out drinking, having a designated driver at least. I don't drink alcoholic beverages myself, so.
But distractions are many things, and I always ask people in the class for volunteering things they have seen, and people always mention someone like doing makeup, women.
Right.
Now, not just the women though. The men might be shaving. They're on they got a little portable shaver and they're shaving on the way. And I've had people tell me that they've seen people putting contacts on their eyes.
And they're already supposed to be in their eyes before
Yes.
they get in the car to drive.
Or driving with their dog in their lap.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I've actually seen someone driving with a book on their steering wheel
reading
their book, turning the page so there are many kinds of distractions, but you know, naturally the most obvious ones are the cell phone use today, and
yeah, somebody that I knew,
somebody
was eating a sandwich or something while she was driving, and dropped it and reached to get it, and the car swerved in front of a truck, and she got killed. So. These are all things. And then you said something about if you absolutely have to have water or something in the car. I remember you saying something about normally people have to tip their head back
like with your,
to drink the water. And you said if you absolutely have to do that, to use a straw.
Right. And I've seen people with those taller coffee mugs that have them, and they'll have a straw in them also. So that would be the safest way if you absolutely have to have some liquid in the car.
Yeah. But the very safest thing to do is do it when you stop.
Stop, exactly.
The car.
You got it.
Okay. The safest way to park in parking lots, Shirley. Now, you were saying in class, you were telling us that when we go somewhere where we're going to have to park in a parking lot, you said to look for a place where there's 2 spaces empty where you can pull in from one side and pull so that your car is
right, so that
facing
you can
out.
Pull out. New York State, you're allowed to do that. Some states where they only have one license plate, that wouldn't be acceptable, and that could be...
Like Pennsylvania.
Yes, and Florida also, they only have a license plate on the back with their number on the back. So that wouldn't be acceptable because they would not see the officer driving through the lot, wouldn't see your license plate. It would be...
Okay.
But in New York State, if that's where you are, it's safer because that way you can pull right out into traffic. You don't have to back up.
Instead of trying to back out of the parking spot, especially if you're parked near vehicles that are quite tall.
Right. And as long as we're mentioning about that, could I also mention too about if someone has a handicap tag, that it's just for the person who is the handicapped person. They can take it and ride in anyone's vehicle and use it in anyone's vehicle, but that person who's the handicap must be with the tag. They must
You can't use it without...
you can't say, Grandpa, can I go? I'm going to the plaza. Could I take your handicap tag so I can park closer to the mall? No, that would be ticketed.
Yeah, I know when my mother, after my mother had the stroke and I had to drive her everywhere she had to go, we had her handicap pass, and I remember when it came time that it had to be renewed, because there's an expiration date on them.
Yes, there is.
And when I went in to get that renewed for her, I think the doctor has to sign it again too, doesn't
he does.
he? Yeah. And then I remember when I went in to get this for her, they told me to make sure to dispose of the old one because people steal them.
Yeah, I know.
I suppose that's so they can use it. They steal
I suppose.
So if you've got one in your car, you or a family member are disabled, make sure your car is locked when it's parked with it hanging there, because somebody might take it.
Right. Another thing too, it's illegal to have that hang tag while you're driving. You're to take it down, because it simply. I was asked a policeman. I ask all kinds of. Wherever I see a policeman, I'll ask a question. It obstructs your view if you're driving.
Oh yeah.
So they don't want to have anything hanging from your rearview mirror.
Yeah, and that used to be kind of in style.
It was
for like in the 50s and 60s.
The tassel of your cap from your graduation in high school, or no, nothing hanging from your rearview mirror.
Yeah. And then another thing that I was going to bring up too, we were talking about it before we started recording the program, was that thing that I see people do a lot at the Wegmans parking lot in Lakewood, where they're coming from one side, and rather than going up and down
the aisles,
people will go shooting straight across, and sometimes fairly fast actually.
Yes.
And I remember I remember one time, my son, I think I'd had an eye doctor appointment, so my son had to drive me to my eye appointment because I was going to have eye drops. And we went to Wegmans afterwards, and when we're going down the aisle, one of the aisle that we were parked in to leave, somebody who was doing that shot out right in front of us between two cars, and he had to slam on his brakes.
To avoid an accident.
Yeah,
yes.
and I've had other people complain that they've seen it at Walmart, the same behavior at Walmart
Yes.
too. So, so I guess we should remember to always just drive
Do the
up and
lanes,
down the
yes.
lanes. You know, people are in such a hurry.
I know it. Yeah, to save 2 minutes or 1 minute, whatever.
Yeah,
Why?
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense for sure.
So that's risky too. I mean, it's risky if you're parked in a place and you're pulling out.
Yes.
But at least it's almost like they don't think normally you would be looking all over the place to pull out of the parking space, but usually the people that do that seem to be going pretty fast. So, okay. Give us some tips on pre-trip preparation and planning and checking your vehicle before driving.
Okay, well, AARP does suggest that you do a 360-degree walk around your vehicle so that you can determine that all of your tires are properly inflated, that you're ready to go. Check your car, is the windshield clean inside and out? All of these things should be done prior to leaving. And we know that even more so when the inclement weather, I don't want to say the S word, which SNOW, whatever.
Yeah.
That time of year, even more so to check and see it. If you are not parked in a garage, you want to be ready to go. So, and you want to be ready also physically and mentally. Are you
right.
tired? Then no, maybe if you're not feeling just up to par, you might not want to drive.
Right.
Or
right.
wait until you feel a little better. Maybe in the afternoon if it's in the morning, or something to that effect.
Or the next day, or
Yes, or
canceling an appointment if you have to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't want to drive if you're not up to par.
Yeah, it's like when you go for those eye doctor appointments where you're going to be having eye drops.
Yes.
Have somebody go with you
Exactly.
to
Right.
drive you home. Now, how do flexibility and strength exercises help to make us a safer driver?
Well, we want to be physically fit as well as mentally, as I said, and you want to, in our program, there are some very simple exercises that I mentioned, and we see them in the DVD that we also view, of things that can make us stronger to sit up, because we want to be able to sit up well enough in the vehicle so we can see over the wheel as opposed to through it. So we're talking about things about getting ready for that. But being physically fit, so we do show you what some exercise can be. I never ask anybody to do them because I don't know, someone may have a neck issue or whatever, but you do want to have flexibility so you can
turn your head back and forth.
Every car, no matter how small, has a blind spot. And remember, the bigger the vehicle, the bigger the blind spot. And even though they are making some devices for cars today, that try
like the rear view camera and all that.
All those, you still have to be able to turn your head when you're passing a car. Be sure you.
Those rear view cameras, I've noticed, aren't extremely accurate either. Sometimes things generally are closer to you than the camera shows.
Right. And
so
something could just jut out in front of you so quickly that you wouldn't see it. So you really have to be able to, and also some exercise for your feet so you can move your foot up and down from the gas to the, the accelerator to the brake quickly. So we want.
Depending on your level of disability, I suppose it might be a good idea for some people maybe to discontinue driving.
Yes, and at some point, if it could be for a disability, some illness, so it's just not older people. I mean, younger people have issues also that it's an individual thing for sure.
And then one of the things we learned in the book was to keep a space cushion around your vehicle while you're driving. You want to say something about that?
Sure. If are driving and you have enough space behind you and on either side of you, if it's a multi-lane road that you're on, so that if you have to move fast, you can either get ahead quickly, cut in to the right, or move to the left, or if you're braking for the car behind you, enough room to stop so that. And again, many times people will say, well, if I'm driving the speed limit, the person behind me wants to go past because they want to go faster. And it's far better to let someone who's behind you and they want to go faster than the speed limit, to let them go ahead of you, because if they're behind you and they're upset because they want to go faster and you're not going fast enough, they're going to become irate, and then they're going to be accident prone. They're going to be causing a problem, so you don't want that. But
I usually do actually slow down somewhat when I notice that somebody's trying to pass me.
Let them pass you, absolutely. Let them go by. And
and it happens a lot, and it amazes me how many times people pass me when I'm not exceeding this, when I'm not driving slower than the speed limit.
And mind you too that, remember I said that if they're honking their horn at you needlessly and unforeseen, there's a police car nearby, they're going to get a ticket, because that's
illegal too, is to be honking at people that are obeying
yes, it is.
The law. Okay, and then you said something about scanning to view the total traffic scene. Elements of scanning are...
Yes, like if you're driving in the city, you want to try and see what scanning, looking left and right and ahead, at least a city block. And if you're driving in the country roads, of course you're not have a city block, but you want to look left and right, and always using your mirrors, and you're turning your head, looking in the rear and straight ahead also. Scanning. Just be aware of who's in front and back and around you.
Yeah. Now, the guys on the crew brought me a couple questions. One of them is, how safe are safe driving cars?
Safe driving cars, the newest?
Or I mean, self-driving cars, I meant to say.
We don't have any around here that I know of, and I have not driven one, although I did get a car that has 360-degree cameras around. It has a mirror or a camera that I can see who's behind me at all times. This may not answer the question though. I've driven it on the throughway. It's very new, under 1,000 miles already, less. If I veer off on that fog line, it automatically pulls me back onto the road.
Oh, really?
It's a funny feeling to see it. I just wanted to have, also to reduce the blind spot, if a car's coming up past me on the left side, a little car flashes and I hear a little beep, beep, the car's passing. Anyway, but I have not driven that particular car that's the self-driving car.
I guess I
think they're very new, probably still test driving them some places.
I'm not sure how I feel about it. I'm thinking the car really doesn't have a brain, it just does what it's programmed to do.
I understand though that even if they're self-driving, that if something kicks in, the driver still can control it.
If they notice something.
Don't want to become too reliant.
You don't want to become too reliant on any machine, really.
No.
I mean, what are we just going to stop doing everything, and let machines do it?
Sorry, I can't get more information.
They talk about robots taking people's jobs, but that's the reason jobs were created, was so people could earn a living, you know what I mean?
Very good.
So what if they want to know, what if the only two options, like if a pedestrian suddenly runs out in front of you, what if the only two options are hitting the pedestrian or swerving, is what they want to know.
That's a very broad question. I think it's similar to what you said before with the person, with that either hitting the biker or hitting endangering the
Yeah,
life of your child.
that's pretty much the bicycle rider and the pedestrian are practically the same situation. Yeah.
I don't think I could.
You
even
would
begin
have to be in
venture
the
that.
situation. It would depend on what was off the side of the road.
Yes.
And
I'm sure you'd brake as
and whether or not something was coming in the other lane from the other
Yeah.
direction. It all depends on every situation's going to be different.
right. Probably, like I say, you'd brake as fast as you could, of course. And at that point, I'll mention too about the ABS brakes. And I always mention this with the ABS brakes: stop, stay, and steer in the direction you want to go. Don't pump your brake like they used to be. And by the way, you get a discount if you have ABS brakes on your insurance also. That's also a...
Oh, really?
So
Oh.
you need to check your policies to
Yeah,
see
yeah.
what you do if you have ABS
Yeah.
brakes.
Why don't you probably a lot of people who have not taken the ARP driver's course probably don't know about the yellow dot.
Okay.
So maybe you could
Yes.
describe that too.
This is a program that I heard about, I'm trying to think how many years ago. It was actually, I found the article in the Dunkirk Observer, probably it was in the Jamestown also, because it's a program that, here we go, June of 2012. And since then I've been promoting this. It's called the Yellow Dot Program, and all the sheriffs, all the way from Lake Ontario down to the border of Pennsylvania, in this area, there's probably 8 or 10 counties, and all of those sheriffs that are part of this program. Comes out of Albany. It's called the Yellow Dot Program. It's really yellow paper. It has a person who has personal information on it, their name and birth date, and where they live, their home phone. Inside is more personal information. Who would be a contact emergency person in case of a medical emergency? Their name and address and phone number. Physicians that you have, their names and phone number. What kind of a physician is it? Medical? Is it a primary doctor, gynecologist, whatever it would be. Preferred hospital, if you know your blood type, and anyone who's ever donated blood would know their blood type for sure if you've been in a hospital. Any medical conditions or recent surgeries which might be helpful to an emergency responder. Medications, and this part I always write in pencil because those can change.
Oh, yeah.
Allergies, and then a photo of this person. I have one of these in my glove compartment for myself and my husband, okay? This is for first responders. So if I have an accident, this little yellow dot really is put on the outside window, behind the driver, outside if it's in the back, okay? Not on the back side, but on the side of the driver.
Okay.
So when the first responder sees that, they're going to know that in my glove compartment, they'll find this form. It's all filled out and helps. You could also have this Yellow Dot program, have this on the door of your home, which people would most come to. For my house, it's the front door, so I have one down there at the bottom of the side light. They also know that if I have a situation at home, they'll find one of these for me and my husband. It's in a plastic bag in the upstairs kitchen refrigerator freezer. Right? Nothing happens because it's in a plastic bag closed in. They know there to go and find it, and very valuable information, because I don't care how calm and collected anyone is, if you have an emergency situation, you just get all upset because you're concerned about what happened, and you just can't think of all the things you want to, what medication, oh my goodness, what kind of medication person taking. So, valuable thing to have. You can get these also, and I have spoken with our sheriff,
I don't know.
Quattrone.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I have to
personally,
think. Now
yes.
we had Gerasi for
Yes.
so
Okay.
many
Well, I
years.
started along with him, and so when Mr. Quattrone came on the scene, I called him, and I got his machine. He called me right back, promptly told me he was for this and would promote it also with the deputies. So I give everybody the phone number. You can call the Sheriff's Office, 753-4900, and they'll send you as many of these as you want. If you come to my class anytime. I give everybody one of each of these and then if you want more, they can get more. But anybody who you have in your class, let's say you were taking your mother, you would have one for your mother in the car also, because you were taking her places a lot of times. So you'd have one of these in your car also. If you have grandchildren and you were taking them places, you'd have one for each of them in your car also. So anyone who would ride with you frequently, that's what you'd have. I can't promote it enough because we personally have used it in our family, and so I know it works.
Oh yeah,
It works.
Speaking of people's houses, there's another thing. When I was taking care of my mother, that when she was getting signed up at one time for Meals on Wheels, they brought what was known as a life file, made out of paper about 8 by 10. It's a pocket. It's, you know, 2 sides to it, you know, and it's like a pocket with a magnet on the back that you hang on your refrigerator, called a life file.
Okay.
And that would be in case of an emergency too. That would go if somebody was taken in an ambulance or something, the life file would go to the emergency room with them. A lot of elderly people have what's known as do not resuscitate orders, and if they have that, that'll be in there, you know.
Yes, exactly.
Some people, you know, with terminal illnesses or anything, if they should go into cardiac arrest, they just want to be allowed to leave, you know, rather than being kept.
This yellow dot, this is for emergency first responders, whether it be the police or the fire department, any rescue squads, anything like that. And I've spoken with our local fire chief about this, and they're all convinced it is really important. It's not just local. I say it's Ontario, you know, all the way down, all Erie County, Niagara County, all the Cattaraugus. So good program.
Yeah, really. Now, the program is just about over. Is there anything else that you really, really want people to know before we sign off? I mean, well, actually, maybe they should just take the course because, you know, because obviously there hasn't been, it's a 6-hour course. You're in class for 6 hours. And there's no way we could cover all the information in a 1-hour television program. So
and we do not read the book out loud. No, we won't do that.
Yes, and we each get our own workbook and everything.
And you get to keep,
that we get to keep afterwards. You can read it over.
Yes.
You take the class every 3 years.
Yes, and your insurance, your discount will apply for that 3-year period. And many insurance companies will send you a card to remind you that, you know, you need to take it by such and such a date. And you can also say, take this for point reduction, up to 4 points. And a funny thing that happened a couple of classes ago, not yours, but a lady came to me, and I always keep these things confident, never mention names. And she said, the first day of the class, she said to me that the day before, she had gotten a ticket for using her cell phone. I said, well, you are in luck, then I said, because you can use this class to reduce, you know, 4 of those 5 points, shadow them for your insurance company. So you'll only show one point on your leftover on your insurance. But I said, because it happened after the fact. Now, you can't take this class and then say, like today, you finish the class and then get a ticket tomorrow and apply it. No, you take the class again to get, so you can't, you know, store up.
There's nothing that anybody can do to cheat on it.
No. And there are little quizzes that we do. Sometimes we do them together, sometimes that people, you know, do them independently. But no one is going to ask you, in my class anyway, how many got that right, because it wouldn't be nice. And you know, this is something that you want to enjoy doing and not feel that I would never put anybody down intentionally ever anyway. So never mention names.
Oh, no. No, I remember. You seem to be a really nice person. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And
This was the first time for experience for me, but I hope I've given you accurate information that will benefit anyone who sees the program, and encourage them to check with their senior center if they have one. And we don't have one in Fredonia, but I publish it in the paper periodically, or call their insurance company, or go online.
Go to the AARP
line,
website.
and you'll
Yes.
find where their nearest class is, because you'll find it very beneficial. And your insurance company must, remember that's a state law, that's a goodie, they must give you that deduction on your insurance.
Maybe it should become a state law for all senior citizens to take the class every 3 years.
Or maybe some 18-year-olds also who think they know it all. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you know, it does seem like people have most of their accidents when they're a new driver, when
Yes,
they're young.
when they're very young. And then it sort of settles down for a little while, Gail, and when, you know, and then it escalates as people get older. So this is probably designed for the older person, but there's a lot of valuable information. So I hope you've all enjoyed.
Okay, so all of you out there, make sure to take the course, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks on the next episode.